So now without further ado, I do want to hand it over to our presenter today, Ms. Diane Weigel, who will be talking about VetNow by Brainfuse, a great resource that will hopefully get you connected to jobs and all the resources that you as a veteran or your family member are entitled to. Over to you. Thank you.
Thanks for that. And I'm going to share my screen so you can see what the VetNow homepage looks like. So what I would like to do is give just a little bit of an overview of the VetNow program, and then I'll go into some of the sections in more detail. Because we have a limited amount of time, I'm not going to go into like super intense detail for all of the sections. I'm going to really highlight the ones that are used most frequently. So the first thing I would like everyone to know is that with our VetNow program, we have what we call veteran navigators. And these navigators are people who are able to assist with finding VA benefits and community resources. What's really nice about our veteran navigators is they're veterans themselves. So they've been through the process of transitioning from military to civilian life. They understand how to use the VA resources, and they have a pretty good understanding of the different community resources that are available. So the users are able to connect with a peer versus a civilian, which we feel really helps build a nice level of rapport. I do have an example of an interaction between a veteran and one of our navigators that I am going to show. And this interaction is in our Brainfuse classroom. I have to apologize because my demo video is slightly outdated. We have updated our classroom to make it a little bit more improved in terms of usability, and the tools that are currently across the bottom in this video are actually over on the left side of the classroom now. Nonetheless, the tools all work the same way and the interactions take place in the same type of manner. So this particular session is text-based, and you'll see that there is a lot of back and forth with the navigator gathering the information in order to assist the veteran. So they're asking questions to get a better understanding of what would be best to help the veteran. And this is also sped up. So typically, most of the, if someone is using just the chat option, it's typically just done in the chat box versus on the whiteboard, but we wanted it to be, since this is a demo, we wanted it to be large enough to read easier. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to switch back over to the VetNow homepage. And so in addition to being able to connect with a live person, we also have down right below it, send question, which is an area where veterans are able to send in a question about VA benefits and community resources anytime, 24/7, and they will get the response by the next business day. It's great for people who may not have the time to sit and work through a live session, or if it's outside of the live hours. So when using a send question, when you click the link here, it is going to prompt you to log in or create a username and password. And this is so you can come back and retrieve your answer to your question. So I'm going to show you how to sign up, since that is very important. It's also important to know that we do not collect any personal information. When creating an account, it's just the username and the password. That's all that is needed. So the password is typed twice, and then we do have a password hint and a password hint answer. So the caveat, or the thing to keep in mind with creating an account on Brainfuse, it is completely anonymous, but we don't collect email addresses. So because of that, if someone forgets their password, we cannot do a simple email reset because we don't have an email address. So what I like to recommend is that you either use a password that you know you're going to remember, or you save it in a secure location. There's different apps that you can use for your password tracking, or you can write it down, just whatever works best for you. That being said, if you do happen to forget your password, our tech department can reset it for you. It's just not as simple as getting an email sent to you. You would need to actually email our tech department and wait for a reply from them, or call them. So it just makes more sense to make sure that you store your username and password somewhere, or you create something that you know you're going to remember. Another thing that is important to keep in mind is that we do not collect any personal information, but we also recommend that you do not share that information with the veteran navigators, the coaches, or the tutors. We see it from time to time. It's not shared in any way, shape, or form, but it's just good practice for your privacy to not share that information. Now, all of that being said, this is what our send question area looks like. So what you would do is you would type your question into the box. And if you do have, odds are you're not going to have a file to attach for this, but if you do have a file that you're working on that you would like the navigator to take a look at, you can attach it, and you would just browse for it on your computer and then click submit. The response is returned by the next business day. And to retrieve your feedback, to get your response, you will need to log in on Brainfuse from the library, or the library link from the library's website. And then there's a couple different ways you can get to your message center. I think the easiest way is there is an inbox up at the top. And when you have feedback, there will be a little icon next to the inbox, just like what you see on social media, where there's, when you have a notification, there's like the little circle with the number in it, letting you know that you have something to take a look at. Okay, so back over on the home page, I'm going to continue talking about the veteran resources, and then I will talk about the job resources. So I'm skipping around a little bit from the order that the website is laid out in. I want to go into the veteran resources section next. And that's exactly what this is. It's essentially a database of different resources for veterans and their families. So we do have nationwide resources, and these are organized into various categories. We have education, where you see things such as the GI Bill, Vet Success on Campus, Troops to Teachers. scholarship programs, employment, healthcare, housing, and then the very last section we categorized as miscellaneous. And in the miscellaneous category, you'll see things that are more geared towards military families, as well as different resources that span perhaps multiple categories. So for example, we have resources here for the Iraq and Afghanistan Veterans of America. So it's much more specific to that demographic. So it's a pretty extensive list. I'm going to hop back up to the top and go into the local resources for veterans. So these are all for California in general. We do have different educational resources. You'll see here links to some of the different community colleges, as well as some waiver information and additional California-specific resources for troops to college, the GI Bill, and then also information about the FAFSA, which is the financial aid application. And then there's some additional resources. One that's very specific for your area is the 211 LA County, where there are live specialists to help you find information on local programs and resources. And we do have some area-specific healthcare information. Some information about benefits, employment, housing, and that's the end. So it's a pretty extensive library of resources for California veterans. Okay, back over on the VetNow homepage, we're going to talk now about the different job resources that are available for veterans. When it comes to that transition from military to civilian careers, one of the things that we've seen that tends to be a little bit more challenging is just translating your skills from the military to the civilian careers. And Sean, I will go back over how to create an account. So no worries, I will show that again. In terms of the job resources, we do have live job coaches. So a little background, we know that our navigators are all veterans, that's their background. For our job coaches, we do require that they have a 4-year degree. We reference and background check, and that applies to everyone, all of the veterans, coaches, and the tutors that we work with, we reference and background check. We also, for the coaches and for the tutors, require a 4-year degree. And then we do have quality assurance things in place to, like, people that will oversee live sessions and things like that, just to ensure everything is going smoothly. So if you click the connect button right here in the box, it's going to take you to one of our job coaches who has a specialty in helping transition resumes from military to civilian careers, with a focus on translating the military skills and the keywords. Also, formatting is very, very important when it comes to creating a resume. In addition to the live coaching, we also do have a resume lab. So I'm going to I'll log out of this demo account and I will show how to create an account again now, because you will need to have an account in order to use the resume lab. So you'll see, and it's always going to prompt you to log in or sign up when you need to have an account to use the tool. So I'm going to click Submit Resume. I have my prompt here to either log in or sign up. So I'm going to click on Sign Up. And it takes me to this page where I'm going to choose my username, and I'm going to do something different this time. So I can create a new one. I'm typing in my password 2 times, using my password question and answer. And again, highly recommend either creating something that you know you're going to remember, or writing it down or putting it in a secure location. Now, with the resume lab, what you'll do is you will find your resume on your computer by clicking Browse File, which will open up the browser on your the file browser on your computer. Once you have found the file that you would like to attach, then there is a little comment box here where you'll enter information that will be helpful for the resume coach to know. Whether perhaps you are just updating your resume, or perhaps you are applying for a specific job. The more information that you can provide to the resume coach, the more detailed the feedback will be, and the more tailored it will be to the job that you are either applying for or searching for. If it is a job that you are actually actively applying to, I would highly recommend just copying the job description from wherever you found the posting and putting it into this box, because that's going to give the resume coach all the information that they need that would be most helpful for them to provide the best feedback for you. There's a lot of nuances with resumes that are relatively new. One of them is called, one of them used by many companies is called ATS, which is essentially a tool that pre-screens resumes. So in order to kind of get past that first stage of submitting your resume, you have to, there's certain things that you need within your resume to get past that initial stage. I hope I'm explaining this correctly. Basically, you want to make sure that you're using keywords, that you have a good format, that you are including all of the appropriate qualifications for the job that you're applying for. Essentially, our coaches are able to assist you with all of those things if they have the information for the job that you're applying for. Just like with send question, the feedback is going to be sent to your message center by the next business day. And again, I think the easiest way to get to the message center is just from the little inbox at the top. Another way is there is a drop down underneath the username, and the message sender is there as well. I'm going to pull up an example of resume feedback, just so you can kind of see what to expect if you are sending your resume in. So all of our coaches fill out like the first part of the feedback is a form that they fill out. This paragraph is always the same for everything that you send in through the resume lab. It's really just letting you know what to expect as you're looking through this feedback. And then there will be a little bit of information, just a general paragraph about what a resume is. A lot of times it's easy to forget that resumes are really marketing tools, that you are putting your best foot forward and kind of showing off, letting people know like, hey, I did this really cool thing and it increased productivity, or I came up with this great idea and all of my coworkers were so happy with it. The morale was improved. So those are just things to kind of keep in mind when you are writing your resume. Then there will be some general suggestions related to your resume. So if, for example, you have a very long resume that's more than 2 pages, it's something that we recommend is not used. What type of contact information to include. Just some other kind of more general tips for the resume. All right, so this is an example of the revised resume, but before we even look at the revision, I want to show you what was sent into the resume lab, just so you can see the difference between the two. So this is the original resume, and it's not a bad resume. There's things in here that we don't recommend doing, like we don't recommend including an objective in your resume anymore. It's something that potential employers may not necessarily care that much about. What they want to know is what you can do for them, not what you want. And that sounds a little harsh, but that's really the reality of job hunting. You're trying to get someone to pick you for a position. So you really want to show off your skills and your experience as much as possible. So by saying things like, I want this, or, you know, it's just not something that's going to resonate with the potential employer. And I'm just going to kind of scroll down through the resume that was sent in and point out just a couple things. It's difficult to scan a resume when there are big, or to scan any text when there are big blocks of information. It's much easier when things are bulleted. It's important to keep in mind that potential employers are probably getting hundreds of resumes for each position that they are sharing. And if your resume is not able to be scanned easily, odds are they're not going to get to see like all of the differences and things that you did at your previous position. They really only spend a few seconds looking at each resume and getting an idea before they decide if it's someone that they want to look into more detailed or not. So it's important to just make sure that you're really highlighting things, and bulleting is a great way to do that, to make your resume more scannable. So now I'm scrolling up so you can see the revised resume. And in the revision, our coaches will make changes to the formatting, and they'll also explain why they're making changes. So one of the things that they did is they changed the font from Times New Roman, which is a little bit outdated, to a different font, to a sans serif font, and gave some other recommendations. They also removed the address. That's actually no longer necessary to include. You can include your city and state if you'd like, but even that's not necessary. And Instead of doing the objective, they replaced it with instead of doing the objective, they replaced it with a summary statement. And this is a much better way to really highlight those key aspects of what you bring to the table to the potential employer. It's a short phrase, a couple of sentences where you're essentially summarizing all of your experience into a few key words. And then as you look through the feedback, you'll see additional changes that were made and then why they were made. Okay, I am going to switch back over to the VetNow homepage. Give me 1 second to do that. There we go. And we are going to go back to the homepage. And I'm going to scroll all the way to the bottom where we have the other job-related tools. I'm not going to go into detail for each of these because there's a lot of information in some of the resources, but I want you to know what's available. So we already talked about the coaches, resume coaches in the resume lab. In addition to that, we do have live interview coaches. So if you are preparing for an interview, you can actually talk with an interview coach and do a practice interview, really to help you get a better understanding of the different types of questions that may be asked, as well as how you can best answer those questions. And they can even give you feedback. There is the ability to talk to the coaches instead of using the chat. So if you're choosing to use the audio components, they can even give you feedback on your tone of voice. If you are speaking clearly, if you are saying and a lot, which I know I do all the time, just those types of things really help them or really help you know what you need to improve on for an interview. So I'm going to continue talking about resumes. We do have some resume resources. So there's a couple different resources specific for creating a resume. One of them is called Skills First, and this is a pretty extensive tool where you can actually build your resume. And I will say, if you don't feel comfortable with using the computer, it's probably not the best tool for you, and that's okay. That's totally fine. The Skills First Builder has templates that you can, I want to say like 600 example resumes that you can look at and build your resume off of, but it does get a little bit complicated as you go into it more. It's a fabulous option, and it's really, really expensive, but it doesn't work well for everyone. So as an alternative, we also have resume templates in both English and Spanish. So these are actually Word documents, and there's 3 main types of resumes: chronological, combination, and functional. Chronological is by far the most preferred, which is the very first link. And when you click it, it's going to download the file for you, and you can then open it. So instead of having to start your resume with a blank document, or even just using like a Microsoft template, it's giving you not only a layout, but also examples for each section and explanations of what to put in that particular section. So it takes away a little bit of the overwhelming feeling of having to start with something completely blank and not knowing where to start. Resumes are definitely one of the most challenging things to write, in my opinion. And I realized I was talking and I did not switch the screen, so you did not see the template. So let me just share the screen so you can actually see the template. This is what the template looks like with all of the different sections. It's already laid out for you. It's just a matter of coming in and putting your information into the different sections. So in addition to the templates, another tool that we have in the VetNow program is military skill translation tools. We have a couple different ones because it's always nice to use multiple resources whenever you can. And these are really helpful for helping you figure out how to translate the skills that you did in the military to match the civilian careers you are looking for. And then there are also a few other just kind of more general informational links to resources for transitioning to civilian careers. Okay, so I'm going back to the homepage and scrolling to the bottom again. And so we've covered all of the different resources for resumes. We also have resources for searching for a job. So one of the first things when you are starting your job search is just making sure that you know what type of job you want to apply for, and that you have a good idea of the requirements, the skills, the education, the salary. You just kind of have a good idea of everything within that particular field. So in order to find that information and really help you match what you enjoy with different careers, eParachute is a really great tool. You probably have done some sort of career assessment in your life. Most people have, even if you haven't. This is essentially what that is. It's really focused on helping you find a job that you will enjoy and find interesting. And it's a really simple process to go through. I think it's actually one of the most fun tools. It's just really cool to see the different types of jobs that are recommended based on what you enjoy and what fields and skills that you have. And then for actual job searching tools, if you go into, and I know I'm giving you a lot of information, but this is being recorded, so you will be able to go back and rewatch anything that you may have missed. But if you're actually ready to search for a job, you can come into the job resources. A lot of times, what you do is you just search using Google or Bing or whatever search engine you prefer, which is great. That's definitely a really good option. What we've done within VetNow is we've curated a list of different websites where you can do job searches that you know are going to be accurate and they are going to be cost-free. Sometimes with looking for a job, there are different tools that you may find on the internet that, for example, maybe you find a resume builder on the internet and you're going through the process, you're filling out all of your information, and you get to the end and it asks you for a credit card. So we just make sure that all of the resources that are provided to you are free, are accurate, are up to date, all of those good things. So it's kind of a curated list of different job sites. And we do have them categorized into general job sites and then also job sites that are specific for veterans. Some of these you may be familiar with. Monster.com, I think, is probably the most well-known job site. Indeed is also very, very popular, as is LinkedIn, which is, there are job postings on there, and it's a really great place to network. And then at the bottom, there are the more specific job sites for veterans, where there will be links to different companies that specifically seek to hire veterans, etc. I couldn't think of what to say, to be honest. Yeah, so these are the more veteran-specific resources, and there are quite a few. And then there are also local job-seeking resources. So these are all for the LA area. So if you're looking for something local, this would be a really great place for you to come and do a job search. Another part of job searching is the interview. So I mentioned earlier that we do have live interview coaches. We also have interview resources as well as interview tips. So the resources are links to various websites that offer really phenomenal guides and ideas and different things that are helpful when you are preparing for an interview. I'm a type A person. I like to be super prepared. So for me, my favorite resource in here are the it's the 100 potential interview questions from monster.com. I just really like that I can go through each of these different questions and really prepare myself. So one of the questions that is asked in almost every interview is tell me about yourself, which it's an intimidating question. So it's one that you really want to make sure that you're prepared for. And when you take the time to come and look at these types of resources or connect with an interview coach, they're really able to help you prepare for how to best answer that question. So in addition to the links to resources, we do have interview tips. And these are more to the point, quick, and easy to read tips for preparing for your interview. So it's organized into like the whole interview process, from before an interview to while you're at the interview and after the interview. I'm going to pull up the after the interview tips because I feel like some of these things are commonly forgotten. And they're little things that can make a really big difference and help you stand out from other potential employees. So after the interview, some things to keep in mind is to shake hands, ask when you expect to hear about the hiring decision, ask for a business card, and send a thank you note. So like those 4 little things can make the world of difference when it comes to interviewing. So back over on the VetNow homepage, the last item in the job tools is unemployment assistance, which is stressful in and of itself to be unemployed. So we do have coaches who are able to assist with completing unemployment benefits forms. For these coaches, they will never ask you for any personal information, nor should you provide any personal information to them. What they will do and what they can do is help you figure out where to find the information for the form. There's one other section that I'm going to talk a little bit about, and it is the tools for learners. So sometimes when leaving the military, there's skills that you may have learned in school that would be applicable to a job, but you did not use while you were in the military. Like perhaps you didn't really have to write anything, or perhaps you didn't use any technology tools. Using the tools for learners is an area where you can brush up on those different skills, or even learn something new. So we do have live tutors, and for the live tutoring, we have several different topics: computers and technology, English, job searching, math, and science. So these are kind of the core categories that would be useful when you are leaving the military, getting ready to find a civilian career and moving into that civilian life. And these are all geared towards the adult learning level or the college level. So even if you are taking some college courses, maybe you're doing a writing course at the local community college and you need some assistance, you can get that live help from a tutor within the VetNow program. There is an option to connect with a tutor using audio. And then under the preferences, if you do prefer to communicate in Spanish, you have an option to work with a Spanish-speaking tutor. And then after clicking Get Live Help, our classroom will open up and you will get connected with a tutor. One question that I get asked pretty regularly about the tutoring is how long does it take to connect with a tutor? And our average is under 30 seconds to connect with a tutor. Sometimes it could be a little bit longer. It just depends on the amount of people who are trying to connect with a tutor at that time. I can tell you that the highest used time for the live tutoring is in those immediate after school hours from about 3 until 6 p.m. That's when it tends to be the busiest. That of course varies and fluctuates, but on average that tends to be the busiest time. So it may take slightly longer to connect with a tutor, but on average our connection to a tutor is very quick. Our tech team created a tool. I don't understand it. I don't need to understand it. All I know is that the tutor, you will get connected to an expert very quickly. Some other tools within Tools for Learners. So we talked earlier about the resume lab. We also do have a writing lab laid out super similarly, where you will attach your documents. You can add comments into the box, just what is the purpose of your writing. Maybe you are just writing a thank you email for an interview that you completed. You can put that into the comment box and then send it off to the writing tutors who will help you with grammar, with formatting, with organization, style, all of those core writing components. Just like with all of the other tools where you're sending something in, the feedback is the next business day. And again, it does get returned to your message center, which you can access either via the inbox here at the top. There will be a little alert when you have feedback, or under your account name, My Message Center. One thing I want to clarify for the writing lab, there's a big difference between the resume lab and the writing lab in terms of the type of feedback. With the resume lab, as you saw, our coaches do go through, they do make changes on the resume, and they will update the formatting. They will do basically everything to really help you improve your resume. When it comes to the writing lab, it's a little bit different. So let me actually take a minute here to show you very quickly the writing feedback. I have it zoomed in a little too much. Let me zoom it out a little bit. So we saw all of the changes to the formatting and everything on the resume with writing lab submissions, because a lot of times we do see homework assignments coming in. Our tutors do not make changes. They give the information in order to improve the writing, but they don't make changes directly to the file. Instead, what they do, there's a feedback form that they fill out where they will talk about different portions of the writing. And then there will be a copy of the paper that was sent in. Let me get down to that. So here's the paper that was sent in. And what they will do, instead of making changes, they're putting comments in and telling things like this first one here, review the spelling for traveling. Just little comments throughout the paper to help improve the writing. Again, they're not making the changes for you. They're helping you strengthen those writing skills. Also within the tools for learners, send question. We talked about send question for veterans. We also have it for learners. The difference there is with the learners, you would need to choose the subject, so it gets routed to the appropriate tutors. We have a language lab, which has help if you are learning a language. You can connect with a live tutor. You can also use different vocabulary building tools. Flashbulb is a really great tool if you are taking any courses and maybe you're preparing for a test where you have to memorize terminology. You can use Flashbulb to create online flashcards. And lastly, in the tools for learners is Skill Surfer. So Skill Surfer has quite a bit of information, and I want to say like the best thing to remember with Skill Surfer is like if you are wanting to go back to school and maybe you need to take a standardized test, like maybe you need to take the SAT, this is where you can come and you can prepare for that. We do have preparation tasks, which give you information about that standardized test. And then we also have practice tests. Let me pull up one of the practice tests here. And just, you would go through, as you would with any sort of test where you're reading, answering the questions, clicking next to move on to the next question. I'm going to jump all the way to the end and click submit. And I can actually then take a look at my feedback here. Let me need to switch so I can show you the pop-up because you cannot see the pop-up right now. Okay, so you should see the pop-up now where it's showing me all of the questions. I can see at a glance that I got nothing correct, which is not surprising since I didn't read a question and I'm also not a math person. But what you can do then is you can go in, you can look at each of the different questions, what you answered and what the correct answer is. And taking it even beyond that, right from this summary page, it's showing you all of the skills that were tested. And you can actually use this as a guide within SkillSurfer or even connecting with live tutors. So for example, I'm going to jump back over SkillSurfer. So one of the items that I need to improve on is the member sensing concept. So I'm just going to go right back in to the college entrance test prep, right back into the math section. And you can see everything's already organized. So I can come in and I can find that topic in here. Is it a little cumbersome to search visually? Yes, but we do also have a search bar within SkillSurfer. So if you are looking for something specific, you can use that. So in addition to standardized tests and those little lessons that you can use to build your skills, there are some additional career resources. The practice is a standardized test for teachers, as that obviously, or maybe not obviously, is the military test. There's nursing school exam preparation. There's graduate school entrance test preparation. And then there's some additional just skills that may be useful for you to improve on. If we take a look at computers and technology as an example, you'll see things like the Google tools, where you can come in and you can learn about how to use Gmail, what Gmail is. All right, I know I have given a lot of information in a short amount of time. I'm gonna check and see if I have any questions to answer. So I will spend the rest of the time that we have together answering questions. Let me see here. For the community colleges listed, are there ways to identify institutions that are military credit friendly and have many or that is a very excellent question. And I honestly do not have an answer for you. What I can do is I can ask our curriculum departments and they can provide an answer that we can pass on to Jose at LA County. So I see another one here from Sean looking for information on veteran benefits for their senior father. I would say the best place where you can come and look for that information would be coming in to this veteran resources section and probably looking at the nationwide resources because it's very expensive. Depending on the type of benefits that you're looking for, you can just jump to the section here. I'm guessing it's probably going to be either healthcare or housing. So this is where you would be able to find some of that information.
And I did receive a question prior to the session starting, and I don't know if the person is here, but I'll ask it for them. Is there a way to look for benefits for family members of veterans?
Yes. Again, we are in the resources for veterans. This is also where there are resources for the family members. And that will all be in the miscellaneous category. So you'll see here like the Blue Star Families resource, the National Military Family Association. Those are probably going to be the best ones for family members.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much. I think I got through some of the questions that were in there prior. I was able to answer them. We just scratched the surface of what's available on this surface. So if you have any additional questions, you could always respond to the email that I sent to you, and I could pass on that information and get the answer for you.
Perfect. And I do see the question from Gemma about veterans burials, and I don't know offhand. I'm not an expert in veterans specifically, but again, this is something that you can look here in the resources and see if there is, because I don't know off the top of my head if there is a resource for.
And if you are
I
in
want to thank
California,
you.
yeah, just really quickly, if you are in California, I know there is a handbook that the California Veterans puts out periodically that has an extensive amount of resources, and it is a PDF. It is available on LA County Library's website, but I'll go ahead and there it is. You have it right there. Yeah, that does have an extensive list of resources. So I would definitely start there for many of these questions. It's usually my go-to when we get questions about veterans at the library.
Awesome. Thank you. And thank you to everyone for taking time to join me. I appreciate that.
Yeah, well, we are right past the top of the hour, so I do want to thank everybody for joining us here today.